from Abuja.
Hello, thank you for being a part of our show. We appreciate you. I'm Magnus Kpakol, and this is Magnus Kpakol GVA, Global Views Africa. As always, it's all about how we can raise the level of living. That's what it's all about. In View today, we look at how Africa can profit from the power of its new continental free trade area. To do this, we rely today mostly on a World Economic Forum panel discussion involving key players in the African economic and business marketplace. As it stands, it would appear that Africa is ready to turn the corner. Wonderful. But before we see our panel discussion excerpts and experts, we spotlight a must-win attitude in our hidden economics. Now, up next in our quick view, we rank countries by export of key technology. That's coming right up. Trade, as we know, serves as a booster to any economy. It increases the standard of living of the people, creating employment and rising incomes. However, what is really important is the pattern of trade and what is being traded. Components such as electronic circuits that can be used for storing and moving data, interpreting signals or instructions in digital computers, mobile phones, and other electronic gadgets are necessary for the digital economy we have today. For example, the ability of microwave oven to beep when it has finished cooking to inform the user that his or her meal is ready is powered by an electronic circuit. Production of these circuits will definitely set the pace for technological innovations. In this connection, which among the following advanced countries has the highest electronic circuit export in the world? Hong Kong, South Korea, Taiwan, and the United States of America. Which of the following African countries is the largest exporter of electronic circuits in the continent? Egypt, Mauritius, Namibia, and South Africa. Stay with us for our answers coming up shortly. Still in view, Africa to test the power of free trade. Now up next in our hidden economics, to have a must-win attitude. Stay with us. Don't go away.
This one I do with the jabata. Me, I no get time, I did da. Dada cover my face, calling me la ba da. Biggie man, we know they wear a ba da. Tell me, my nigga, what's it come? G-Wagon, all depend. Take your time, ride the whip. I no fit, die for nothing. My nigga, what's it gonna be? G-Wagon, all depend. The garden, ride the whip. I know fit, die for nothing. Make you no say anything.
Yay, the hit song by Burna Boy. Burna Boy, whose real name is Damini Ebonoluwa Ogulu, is a Nigerian Afrofusion singer and songwriter. He recently appeared in top late-night shows in the United States, like Jimmy Kimmel's Late Night Show and Trevor Noah's Daily Show. He is big time and literally breaking the charts and every record. Some have suggested that this song, Ye, should be the national anthem of Nigeria because it captures the real Nigerian can-do spirit of striving to succeed no matter what. Okay, so the African Continental Free Trade Area is coming. But electricity and other infrastructure are grossly inadequate. Yet the Nigerian must find a way to win. That is the attitude often misunderstood by many non-Nigerians. A must-win attitude. And to top it with style and show. As the song says, what is gonna be? G-Wagon or the Bentley? I no fit die for nothing. The Nigerian believes he or she must make it big, one way or the other, which sometimes can lead them into trouble. Indeed, for Nigerians, there's often a gamification of everything. Even driving can become a game. The other vehicle must cut in front of you to win the space ahead. But under control, a must-win attitude can produce good results. So here is the point. A winning attitude is different from winning at all costs. A winning attitude ensures that the victory is not Pyrrhic, where the benefits don't justify the costs. Imagine seemingly winning and then going to jail. Winning at all costs focuses too much on the gains and too little on the costs. That's a situation of indiscipline, and it can lead to peril. Stay with a winning attitude. It weighs the costs and the benefits. Our hidden economics for you.
All depend. Ride the whip. I know feet. Die for nothing. My nigga, what's it gonna be? G-Wagon. All depend. They got it. Ride the whip. I know feet. Die for nothing. Now.
Before we start our discussion, here are our quick view answers. Hong Kong is the top electronic circuit exporter in the world, with 18.4% of the world's total export, valued at $132 billion in 2018. Namibia, with 0.1% of the world's total export of electronic circuits, valued at $741.1 million in 2018, is the largest exporter of electronic circuits in Africa and among the top 30 in the world. For comments, adverts, and sponsorship, please see our information displayed on the screen. So what do the experts have to say about what to expect from the much talked about African Continental Free Trade Area? But before we start off, let's take a look at this summary.
We are calling on everybody to think Africa, act Africa, and prosper Africa.
It comes down to the change of mindset.
I think this is an opportunity which Africa should not miss.
We are implementing the Africa we want.
A lot of the countries understand that this is good for them, that it is a game changer.
So now here is Akinwumi Ayodeji Adesina, President of the African Development Bank. He contends that Africa's export to the world is very small. With the free trade area, he believes the African economy will be able to industrialize better and create tremendous amounts of jobs, especially for small and medium enterprises.
First and foremost is that Africa's trade with the rest of the world is so small, maybe about 4%. And what Africa actually exports is essentially a lot of raw materials. So it makes Africa's exports so susceptible to global volatility. And you see all the booms and the busts that we always have with regard to our economies. But what you find is that those countries that do participate in regional markets are the ones that actually have much more stability in terms of their economies. And so building that size of that market is the critical thing. I think that African economies will be able to industrialize better. I think they'll be able to create a lot of jobs. I think to the point you were raising about the issue of global value chains, if you're going to play the global market, the global value chains are important and it becomes a stepping stone for you to also get into the global value chains. And quite honestly, I think it will create tremendous amount of jobs, especially for small and medium-sized enterprises that can actually trade all across the borders.
As he says, we have to integrate financial markets across Africa. We must also build a strong capital market, which will find ways to connect small companies to big ones. Let's listen to him.
And integrating that financial market, there are only 6 maybe countries that control about 1 trillion of the assets. Nigeria, South Africa, there's Abidjan, there is Morocco, and then Kenya and one of those. Now, if we have very deep capital markets, we can mobilize capital to support infrastructure investments all across the continent. So we have to build very, very strong capital markets if we are going to be able to drive the kind of things that we're saying. And I say all this because we don't want the African continental free trade area to be a market for others. Of course, rules of origin and things like that will play a role. It has to be a market where African companies can play. They have access to the skills, the technology, the infrastructure, but also the finance for them to be able to play. I was in Dakar just a few days ago with President Mahathir of Malaysia on the Emerging Markets Conference. And we're talking about the Asian experience in Africa and how we imagine markets. And I was saying that the key is, if you look in Asia, they have mega companies. Then they have small and medium-sized companies. They connect both of those things, right? In Africa, if this open trade is going to really impact us, we need some big mega conglomerates and make sure they have access to finance. But we also make sure we're funding up and down. We have to connect the small to the big so that as the big one go up, Africa has a lot of businesses that are coming up that can actually create a lot of jobs.
In all this, he says we must be deliberate on the decision we make to help people use the avenue to lift themselves out of poverty. He also argues that Africa must industrialize and learn to turn its natural resources into value-added products. Here again is Mr. Adesina.
So we have to be deliberate, is what I'm saying. We cannot leave the African continental free trade area to be some kind of a loose thing. We must be deliberate on technology. We must be deliberate on infrastructure. We must be deliberate on how we help women and young people with financing structures and capacities to take advantage of this big thing to lift themselves out of poverty into wealth. Africa cannot prosper by continuing to do raw materials. We knew that before. But the secret of the wealth of nations is very clear. Those nations who trade in raw materials are the ones that are poor. Those that actually trade in value-added products are the ones that are rich. Today, 45% of all the intra-regional trade in Africa is still the same as raw materials. And so we got to really, I agree with Mr. Motsope, we have to industrialize. We have to add value. What's the brain surgery in making chocolates? There's none, right? We've got to make sure that we have industrial centers that can allow us to take minerals, oil, metals, gas that we have, and actually produce high-value products. That's why we are going to grow our wealth. So my point really basically is Africa needs the technology, it needs the enabling policy and environment, but Africa must really unlock what it has and turn it into wealth. We can't be all trading the same thing. We have to move into high value-added products.
Winnie Byanyima is the Executive Director, Oxfam International in Kenya. She argues that the CFTA demonstrates the commitment of our leaders to the Sustainable Development Goals and the 2063 Agenda. Here is Winnie Byanyima.
The Continental Free Trade Agreement is really an exciting moment for Africa. It demonstrates the ambition of our leaders to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, the 2063 Agenda. It's hopeful.
She also believes that we have to learn from other trade blocs and globalization in general in order not to repeat the mistakes of the past. We need the government to write down rules that can bring about the success of the CFTA. Here is Winnie Byanyima.
But then we have to learn from other trade blocs, from globalization up to now. And we cannot make the mistakes of the past. So we need to learn from the trade that has happened within the context of globalization. We've had a situation where we have no proper rules, no referees, and bullies take charge and take the spoils. We have richer countries, richer companies, richer people gaining from trade liberalization, and many others left behind. That's not what we want from our bloc.
She also said that we need our countries to set up standards that will bring meaningful jobs through the CFTA. And most importantly, she says we need to be clear on what we want to achieve for our people and then work toward delivering it. That's powerful. Here again is Winnie Byanyima.
So we must define success. What does success look like for us in our bloc? And I think the most important measure of that success is the good quality jobs that will be produced for our young people and for women. So we need our governments to write the rules to ensure this. We need rules to have secure jobs that are coming out of currently what we now have, a very informalized economy, a formalizing economy that creates good jobs. Too many of our countries don't even yet have a minimum wage. Workers have no voice, no rights. This is not the basis for a new global bloc that is going to deliver for our people. The worst jobs are in the informal sector. It is women working mainly in that informal sector. We need to transform this. And to do that, it's not just an accident, it has to be planned.
President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa has been quite excited about the realization of the Continental Free Trade Area. He indicates that the coming into effect of the Continental Free Trade Area is fulfilling the dream that was crafted by the founders of the OAU, now African Union. He talks about how African countries for the first time will be able to trade freely amongst themselves, effectively and competitively, with so much benefits in their continent. He believes the CFTA will make Africa to move to a higher level of economic integration. Here is President Ramaphosa.
Coming into effect of the Africa Free Trade Area Agreement basically means that Africa is fulfilling the dream that was crafted by the founders of the OAU more than 60 years ago, when they conceptualized the formation of an integrated Africa. Then they wanted to see an Africa that is united, that is integrated, that is going to work as an economic bloc. This time round, we were able to fulfill that dream that the likes of Julius Nyerere, Kwame Nkrumah, Jomo Kenyatta had in mind when they formed the OAU, which is now the African Union. We were able this time round to form this common market, a mighty market which encompasses 55 countries, which will have a population span of 1.2 billion people on the African continent, but more importantly, which will cover a GDP of $3.2 trillion, where African countries will, for the first time, be able to trade amongst themselves much more effectively, competitively, but at the same time reaping the benefits of a free tariff area in their own continent. This is going to catapult the economies of many African countries, and this is where South Africa stands to gain a great deal.
So 54 of Africa's 55 countries have signed up to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. And this sets out to create a single market for goods and services. Apparently, it will also allow for free movement of people to expand intra-African trade. In addition to this, the CFTA has the potential to promote regional value chains for improved productivity and quality. Thankfully, it appears that African leaders are harnessing our collective political will to get this continental value chain network moving to bring prosperity to all of Africa. The United Nations Economic Commission for Africa estimates that the agreement will boost intra-African trade by as much as 52% by the year 2022. To show determination and eagerness, African leaders agreed at the outset to bring the free trade area into force 30 days after ratification by 22 of the signatory states. Now, this has happened. What is curious is whether the citizens of Africa know that the game has started and the ball is rolling. How can the arrangement be a game changer for millions of poor people? What countries will be the best winners? Can the arrangement hurt any country? I think that in the end, it is going to be more about production, productivity, and competitiveness. The countries, states, provinces, communities, and persons that understand how to gain from the free trade area will see their incomes rise spectacularly. Some countries may simply be consumer markets, and they will also see how that works. Even so, what is really important is the weaker African communities will have to learn how to arrange strategic global partnerships, as we are doing here at the EBS, to help them offer products that, as President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa has said, can be competitive against global players in price, quality, and accessibility. They will also have to learn how to set up or connect with trans-border value chains. Folks, this thing is big and will be extremely profitable. Let's go. I'm Magnus Kpakol, and that's my view.